Welcome to Scoreboard, the podcast that explores how athletes, both current and retired, define success beyond the game. Each episode dives into the mindset, financial decisions, and career choices that shape their personal scoreboard, whether they're still in the arena or transitioning to life after sport. From victories to challenges, we reveal how athletes take charge of their own paths and decide what truly matters on their scoreboard of life. I'm your host, Chris Titley, and welcome to Scoreboard. Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and in this week's episode of Scoreboard, I'm joined by Sandy Brondello. Sandy, thank you so much for being part of this series.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Sandy, for the listeners that don't know, about 10 days ago, you were the coach of the New York Liberty that won the WNBA title, which is huge for women's basketball, huge for the city of New York. How are you feeling?
Feel pretty good. It's been a massive year, but it's been one of the best. It's going to be hard to top that. Obviously Olympic bronze medalist with the Opals, and then being able to create history and win the first championship for an original franchise in the New York Liberty. So it's been great. Still have to pinch myself. I'm still on cloud nine, but really, really happy that we're able to win.
Before we go to the week of celebrations and what happened, I'm going to take you back to 20 seconds to go in Game 5 when the Minnesota Lynx were dribbling the ball down. They were up by 2. They had the ball. There was a sort of a 4 or 5 second difference in the shot clock. You're sitting there as the coach. What are you thinking?
Yeah, look, at the moment it's just trying to get a stop, and get the ball back so we have another opportunity to tie the game. I think it was a hard-fought battle. It's quite the series. It'll probably go down as one of the closest series in the 28 years of the WNBA. And, as a coach, just staying calm, controlling what you can control. And I think defensively, the players were tired, to be quite honest. Game 5 with the schedule that we had, but they competed so hard. Not a lot of shots were made, so it was really a defensive grind. So I was back in our defense to get another, opportunity to go down the other end, and, we're able to tie the game.
And Sandy, as a coach, I remember you saying in sort of previous interviews that you love big moments. You love the excitement, the pressure. 2 questions on that. One is why, and the other one is, through your career, how have you come to grow into loving big moments?
Yeah, look, obviously very, I'm quite anxious going into the game, but when I get into the game, I'm quite calm. And I think I've been able to develop that over the many years purely because being in that, experiencing it. This is my 20th year being a pro coach. So I suppose with those experiences, you kind of learn what it's like to be in the moment. As a player, I love those moments. As a coach, I enjoy them as well. And sometimes, I make good decisions. Sometimes I don't, just like as a player. Sometimes I put the ball in the hole and sometimes I didn't. But you always try and do your best in that moment. But I've learned to stay really calm, to make sure that I keep the players calm and keep it on task what's at hand.
And Sandy, people talk about relationships with people over time, and people get married and they have partners, etc. But not a lot of people talk about relationships with other intangible things like basketball. Can I talk to you about your relationship and how you describe your relationship with the game of basketball?
Yeah, it's the love. It's one of the loves of my life. I mean, obviously I'm married to my children. I mean, they're extremely important to me. But the first time I picked up a basketball at the age of 9, I just kind of fell in love with it. I found, my haven on the court, quite a shy kid growing up in a sugarcane farm outside of Mackay. But on the court, I was fierce and very competitive and driven. And, it allowed me so many opportunities, and I always wanted to be the best player I could be. I was never trying to be something that I wasn't. There's a lot of discipline, a lot of sacrifices to get where I am, but nothing that I would change. And it's great now to share it. Obviously, my husband is on my staff as an assistant coach role, and obviously our children just love what we do. And I just, even at the age of 56, I have as much passion as I did at the age of 9, and both as a player and a coach.
And I suppose from a basketball point of view, you can be an individual player, but also you're part of a team. So there's 2 different things there as well. Where do you reckon your competitiveness came from?
Yeah, look, I was really into track and field as a young age. I was an Australian champion in long jump at the age of 12. I was competing all the time, but I didn't have that absolute love and joy for it. It was an individual sport. I suppose basketball, why I gravitated to that, it was because of the team sport is going to doing these challenges with your teammates. I got a lot of satisfaction out of that, being successful, the highs and the lows, having someone to go through that, having those experiences in an individual sport. It's just you. And I felt, obviously I put a lot of, individual, even if it's a basketball, it is still you still want to do well. You have your roles to play and, you have your highs and lows, but you can get to share it with your teammates. And I found that, for my personality, that's what I, got the best out of me. And I just love the competitiveness out of it. You always want to be the best you can be. I set goals for myself, short term, long term. And, luckily I've been able to achieve everything that I've set out for myself. I think the only thing that I haven't done is an Olympic gold medal, but hey, we'll keep chasing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on the goals, you said short, medium and long. How do you define it week by week and year by year, or do you think about, like 4 years ahead being the Olympics, etc.?
Yeah, I think a little bit of everything. I think you have to plan. The goal in life is always, how can I get better this week? How can I win the day today? Like, I'm very in the moment, but then I obviously look forward, because you have to, I tell kids today, you have to dare to dream. I never thought I could get here. I'm a sugarcane farmer's daughter, and I'm coaching in New York, the Mecca of, basketball, and one of the biggest cities in the world. And I get to coach my home country. So anything is possible. It's that dedication as well. But I think it's important along the way, you have to actually have those goals, because you have to have something to aspire to do. And mine was, from a young age, was play for Australia. And then, once I realized it could be professional, and it was that, it was a stepping stone. But it's more the individual goals is how I can be better on and off the court. It's more about obviously the physical preparation, but also the mental preparation, which I took, the mental imaging that I thought was extremely important for me as a player and as a coach. But in the end is trying to be the best that I can be, continue to learn. The game evolves. Yeah, there's so much, it changes every year. So regardless how young or old you are, is continue to stay with the trends and continue to, be adaptable and flexible, and not just relying on what got you in the past to where you are, to be better and to push myself to be better. And I think, everything's gone well. Of course, I've had some low moments as well, but I think in those low moments is where you grow the most. Obviously losses, and that could be within a season, but it could be losing championships or not making a right decision game to game. But they're the ways that you can learn, because without those experiences of feeling that pain, you don't actually get to your destination of feeling the joy and the elation of actually being successful in something.
Just touching on that, do you think you've won more games than you've lost as a coach and a player, or is it about even?
Oh, yeah, it's a good question. I know the last 2 years it's been pretty good. I've won a lot of games. I only lost 16 in the last 2 years in the WNBA. But regardless, every loss. But even when we win, like I had a really good team these last 2 years. We've made it to the finals. We lost last year in Game 4 against the Las Vegas Aces, and that hurt. It took me a few weeks to get over that, but then it was like, okay, what am I going to do not to feel like that? And it could have went either way. People think winning is easy. Winning championships is easy. It's really, really hard. And, it's a process. It doesn't just finish at the end of the year. It's all about the stuff, the relationships you're building, the trust, the respect, bringing in the right players, and then obviously implementing the right system for those players to excel in, and then being able to be adaptable. I think that's where I'm very open-minded in that. I'm clear on my philosophy of how I want to play, but I know, to be successful, you've got to keep adapting with how the game's being played. But look, I said I've won a lot the last 2 years, but I certainly have learned a lot from those losses, but also learn a lot from the wins as well, because, as a coach, I suppose now I'm never satisfied. It's more about, the one percenters and trying to work on those one percenters to be the very best team that we can be.
Sandy, growing up, you said you wanted to play for Australia, and you obviously were enjoying basketball as a kid and still enjoy basketball now. But then the professional era came about. Was there a bit of a shift then from enjoying it, or now it's like, actually, I can make a living out of playing basketball? This is amazing. What was your feelings into that era of professionalism?
Yeah, exactly that. When I made the Australian team at the age of 18, It was more, I was playing with my role models and thinking, wow, this is just crazy. But it kind of motivated me to do more and think, this is what I want to be. I want to, not just go to one Olympics. I want to go to multiple, and I want to keep getting and be, the best I can be to help this team be successful. And then, obviously, I was one of the first Australians with Michelle Thames and Shelley Gorman to go over to Europe to play. And not that the money was big back there, but, I had finished my university studies as a teacher, and then I had the opportunity to earn some money, and I just loved it. It was more like, great, I don't need to work. I can just focus on being the very best basketball player, getting the recovery and everything, and making sure that I'm, at the top of my game and continue to grow. And, I just loved it. I loved the lifestyle. Not everyone loves to go overseas and play in Europe. I left home at the age of 17 from Mackay, and, at the age of, I can't even remember, 1992, I don't know how old I was then. I can't remember, it so long ago. I went over to Europe to play and never looked back. So I was playing there and come back and play in Australia. But from 1998, I was in Europe, playing in Europe in that season, and then go straight to the WNBA. So playing 12 months of the year as well as playing for the Australian team was intense, but I wouldn't change everything. I just loved it. I just loved playing basketball, and getting paid to do it was just the bonus, that I could actually just put all my energy into doing that.
And it was very early in the WNBA that you played, and looking back now as a coach of winning the championships and what that moment was in New York when the crowds, you're getting 17,000, you've got amazing mascots, you've got your fanfare, you've got celebrities, etc. Do you sort of pinch yourself as to the progress of women's basketball?
Yeah, no, it's been great. I think the early years of the WNBA, coming off the 96 Atlanta Olympics, it was, I think the interest in women's basketball was immense. I think it dipped off a little bit there, but I think the last few years, it really is a movement. For us, we're getting sellouts every game. Like New York, we've created this great buzz. The talent continues to get better and better. And obviously, the only way you can do that, obviously, is with the media. The media is getting behind us. Obviously, social media as well, their engagements. It was the most in the history of the game, and as well as, how many people were watching just in the playoffs. It was the highest rated, Game 5 and the whole playoff series in 25 years. And that's exciting, and we've got some really great young talent coming in. I think you've heard about Caitlin Clark. Everyone, she's an unbelievable talent, but just the eyes that she's put on our game as well. Teams had to move to bigger arenas just to feel the interest with Caitlin coming into play. And the winner is obviously women's basketball in the WNBA, and it's great. It really is a movement, and it's really fun to be a part of because. I've been in this league for 25 of the 28 years, and I've seen it's been great for me, as I think it's always been high level basketball. It's the best league in the world, but now I think everyone, they're not just great basketball players; they're also great human beings, and they're using their voice, for good.
And Sandy, there's a number of Australians that play in the WNBA, and as you mentioned, it's been a wonderful year with the bronze medal at the Olympics. Can you talk about that particular campaign and how you sort of managed that with the WNBA roles, and then getting everyone together from different places around the world into one spot, and then achieving a medal, which is unbelievable? Yeah, no, it was really, really special. And what people have to understand, because our players are professionals, they're playing all around the world. So the opportunity or the window to get them together to practice is very small. So it really just is like that 8 days before the first game of the Olympic Games, because we support them. This is how they earn their living. We don't have, the players that are back in the WNBL. Yes, we can have some camps in that, but we never have the full group together. And that's just a part of it now. So that's why it makes it really hard. I think we have high expectations that the Opals should always win, but we're going to win on very limited preparation. But I think, being in the role for, this was my 8th year, and I think the continuity, the players kind of know what to expect. I know the players, we've built up a really good continuity and chemistry over the years. Obviously our coaches we've learned from areas we need to, but going into the Olympic Games, like we lost that first game, and it was
probably one of the worst games we've ever played. And purely, there was no excuses. We never made excuses, but it's more like we haven't been together. We haven't played together against all these different countries and different styles for so long. So, we just trusted the process. We're like, okay, we can't have two bad games, but now we need to win every game. And I think our culture and chemistry and we just stayed together when it gets hard, and that's just the Opals culture that we've built. And I won't go we beat Canada, and we had to beat France by 6 points to not cross over with the USA. So number one, we had to win the game, but then we had to win by 6, and we won by 7 in front of 28,000 people. I'll never forget that experience and how proud I was of that team, just how they handled the pressure and the expectation. And then from there, you could see every game that we played together, we got better. And I knew that would happen because we have very limited preparation together. We lost one of our best players on the eve of the games, in Rebecca Allen. So we had to kind of adjust that, and other players were stepping into different roles. But really, really proud for us to come away with the bronze medal. The rest of the world has gotten better, and they spend a whole lot of time more than what we spend together. So for us to come away with the bronze medal is, obviously will go down as one of the best moments in Opals history.
Sandy, you mentioned trust the process. The process is I'd imagine, broadly speaking, comes from the coach and the players and the ideation of like, okay, we've been here before, we know what to do. But a lot comes from the coach. I'm interested to know, as a player and then now as a coach, how the mindset has shifted in terms of now being a coach and actually seeing these people out there going, actually, this is what I think you should do, and then it does pan out or it doesn't pan out. How do you feel as a coach?
Yeah, look, I think it's actually quite similar in both, because as a player, like you're trusting the process of, reading the game, learning the game, understanding what your role is in that game, like to be the best team. And it may be a starter, it may be coming off the bench. Now, obviously, as a coach, I have to manage 12 players and work out, what works together. And with our limited preparation, I mean, I was still working it out too, especially when you lose a key player leading into the tournament. That was tough for us. And we had some other, little injuries we had to navigate around. But I always say we have to trust the way that what got us here. I thought in Brazil to qualify, we made a lot of steps forward. We knew we could get better, but it's just staying confident in who we are. And, a lot of that is leadership. It's not about X's and O's. It's making sure you give them a great game plan and you go out there and you just back them and you give them confidence but you lead them in, trying to make the right decisions there. And I was really happy. It's not just about me. I have a great coaching staff as well, just preparing these players for as best as we can. But I will give credit a lot to our captain, Tess Madgen. We've really worked a lot on our culture these last few years and the values of our program. And I think what we've been through and the adversity that we've faced over the years has helped us to stay together in these really tough times when there's so much pressure on you. It's an Olympic Games. Everyone wants to win an Olympic medal, and it's hard. So I was really, really proud of the effort that we all put into it, and we achieved our goal.
Is there times there where the resilience of the losses and all the learnings that you've had, and obviously winning with New York a little bit, then the Olympics, this sort of the emotions of like, this is really pure dopamine. This is fabulous, right? This is what it's all worthwhile for. Yeah,
no, it is. And wow, I mean, it's been quite a journey. I mean, obviously we had a hiccup in Tokyo, and then, obviously not being able to practice and spend time together, and everyone knows the story, what happened there. We lost a key player in that too. But it allowed us to reset and navigate, like, okay, what do we need to do? And it allowed me, it's like, okay, now we have to bring the right players in. Sometimes it doesn't mean about the 12 best players. It's the 12 best players that fit together, that fit into the culture and fit into the style of play that will enable us to play at our very best. And that's what I enjoy, just the process of putting that together. And hard decisions have to be made along the way, which is, that's probably the hardest part of my job, is making those decisions and telling players and essentially, killing their dreams. And so I hate that, but I always, try and be very honest and fair, with what I'm doing. But I think, we learn from all of our, experiences, and, we are a resilient group, but I think that's a part of the Australian mindset That's, we're Aussies. That's what we're going to do. Where there's this small country, but we have huge expectations, and we believe in the next person beside us, and that trust and commitment, it really shines through.
I'm speaking of Australia. Are you coming back in the off season to come back to your roots?
Yeah, I am. I'm coming back in 3 weeks, actually. I look forward to it. Obviously, as the Opals coach, I come and start looking at the WNBL, what the players are. And, there's obviously a transitional period and changing of the guard a little bit, I suppose, but also to come back and see my family. My parents are getting a little older now, so I try and spend as much time as I can every year with them up in Mackay. And my son actually just moved back. He moved back to Melbourne to finish his schooling. So he's finishing year 11 at Templestowe College at the moment, living with one of my good friends. So I'm excited to go back and spend some time with him and watch him play and, share his basketball journey.
Sandy, just touching on that, there's obviously domains outside of basketball, which is your life, which is family and other things. How do you go about balancing that and obviously having a son across back here in Australia, which is pretty tough?
Yeah, no, it is. It is tough. My husband being a professional coach, that certainly helps. I have the support there, and now we get to actually, be together. But our children were back in Phoenix because that's their home. They didn't, we don't live full time in New York. We lived there for the season. Now we're back in Phoenix. Our daughter goes to school here, so we're enjoying that. So in the summer, she flies in and out. We have the nanny that takes care of him, and our son was a part of that too. But, he wanted to go. It was his decision to move back to Australia, and we totally supported it. I think it was great because I think basketball development there will help him to be the best player that he could be. So I'm excited about that journey. But, this is something we've done all of my career since I've been a mum. The kids love being a part of this journey. Obviously, it's tough at times. This is, I'm number one, I am a mother, and that's the most important thing for me. But I'm also a coach, and I'm just very grateful that I have a lot of support around me. It allows me to do both, and hopefully I do a good job of both.
Now, kids playing basketball these days, there's dreams and aspirations to become professional, and there's a lot of seriousness that goes on. And at our growing up, there probably wasn't that level of seriousness. There was a lot of enjoyment to try and get to the next level, and there wasn't sort of $1 million checks and all that sort of stuff. What's some advice that you can give to kids these days that have aspirations of obviously playing in various leagues around the world, but might not get there, but also just want to continue to go out there and play as hard as they can to go and get there?
Yeah, look, I think the most important thing, basketball is a game. And I have to remind players again, like, this is a game. Even when we lose, it's like the sun's going to come up tomorrow. That's the thing. So it's more about, it's going to help us. And I think basketball is great because it shapes your life as a human being, because you go through, it's being a part of a team. Obviously everyone having different roles and fitting in, and that's life, isn't it? I think, when you the highs and the lows, that prepares everyone for life. But, in basketball, not everyone can be a pro, but all I can say is if you want to, you have to still make sure you have joy playing it. It should be a job. I mean, I still have joy. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do what I do, because it is a sacrifice. At times I have to be away from my family, which is really quite hard for me, but I love the joy that it brings me, but also the joy it brings my kids. And that's probably what I'd, tell everyone out there is, like, make sure you're enjoying it. And some days are going to be harder than others. Some days are going to be more rewarding than others, but it's more, put your short and long-term goals and do your best. But if you don't get there, it's failure doesn't mean you didn't get better, and I think, I think there's too much. No one's a failure, because if you do the best you can be, that's all you can ask. And that's all I tell my children. Brody's 17, he wanted to do this. It was better for him. And I'm like, okay, you go do it. And, we'll support you from afar, but, just do your best. And I tell my daughter, she's 14, and that's the same thing. Like, do your best. I think when they start putting more pressure, and especially when parents are, and I'm a professional coach, I put very little pressure. I try and support him. I try not to overstep him. I try not to overcoach him. I try and be a parent as much as I can. Now, obviously, I'm going to try and teach him some skills. That's sometimes a little bit hard, but in the end, don't forget why you play the game.
Sandy, I'm going to focus on you a little bit to finish in regards to characteristics and traits. One thing I want to ask before we get onto that is, when you're at your peak of your playing performance, what did you think you had that others didn't to be the best at what you were doing?
That's a good thing. Look, I mean, if anyone would say, what was Sandy Brondello as a basketball player, they would talk about my pull-up. I was a pretty good shooter. I think that was, but there's some great shooters, but I'm like, just the way that I saw the game, my commitment to the game, my discipline to my game. I think I was in great shape. I think that's everyone. But in the end, I think hopefully, all my teammates and competitors will say I played the game in the right way. I think that, and I still coach the game in the right way. It's not about me. It's about just helping me being the best so I can help others achieve their dreams as well.
Okay, so we're going to get into some traits now, which I think I know the answer to a couple of them already by chatting to you, but we're going to give it a crack. I'm going to start with resilient.
Yeah, no, I'm very resilient. I have to be. Obviously the highs and lows, and that can, as my playing career, I always say I retired at the age of 36. Yes, my body was getting beat up because I put so much time and effort to being the best I could be. But I thought I knew it was time to retire, and it's really hard for some players to step aside. But it was easier for me because I felt like I had achieved everything, and I thought, what comes next? So I think, I've handled some adversities. Lucky for me, I made all the teams. I went to 4 Olympic Games, but I didn't the first Olympic Games, I didn't even play in 1988. So I have to explain that to players. Like, also, I was a valuable member of the team, but I didn't play. Now I was young. My time was going to come, and it did in the next cycle. But it taught me, like, that's okay. You still have to be resilient. So what do I need to do to be better? But understanding I had a role to play and everyone's still important. So it allows me, I think, as a coach, because I've experienced so many different things and playing at the highest level. But yes, I was a starter, but I was for professionally always in club teams, always a starter, but national team, not always. And, you have to work that out and still think, okay, hey, I'm a part of this very special group. And it was. I think that's made me be resilient. I've had a lot of injuries. I think the resiliency to come back there, but I think the resiliency to continue to stay the course and continue to focus on not trying to be better than the next one beside me, is trying to be the best I could be.
Confident.
Yeah. Oh, without confidence, you have anything. But look, if I got into my head, I was not confident. If I could just go out there and play, that's when I'm confident. But I think I learned from a young age, I suppose. I was pretty good at a young age. I had confidence in my own ability. I think it was when, when I had to get used to some coaches, how tough they were in the beginning, to be quite honest. I'm like, oh my God, I must be a terrible player. But that made me mentally tough. But through it, I never lost sight of who I was. And you got to keep believing in yourself. Because it starts with that. And I tell my kids today, like, you have to have confidence in what you do, but understanding there's always something you can do better. So work on that. So for the most part, I'm confident. I mean, there's times obviously you might lose a bit, but I'm pretty good at bouncing back and staying in the moment.
Structured.
Yeah, I mean, basketball is structured, but it's also very instinctful. And that's why I think that's what makes players special. I was an instinctful player. I could read things before it happened. Now, structured, obviously, in my preparation and how I got to be where I was. But on the court, I had a good feel for the game. So, probably more instinctful than structured.
Nervous?
Very rarely got nervous. I got nervous running track, to be quite honest. You're in the blocks and waiting for the gun to go off. I hated that. But on that basketball court, because it wasn't just me, it was, obviously there's some nerves. But once I got into the game, I enjoyed the process of competing with my teammates. So I suppose that's, where I'm with that.
Superstitious.
I am very superstitious. I still am. I used to always have to take my right foot before my left foot. I mean, it's just simple stuff like that. Just your routine and preparing for the big games. As a coach now, Not as, but I did notice once this year when I write on the board before the game, and I usually have two colours. And I one day, and it was a big game, I realised I didn't change the colours up. And at one stage, I'm like, oh, should I redo it? But I didn't. I was like, that's being silly now. Come on. But yeah, a little bit superstitious.
Serious.
I can be serious, but I am Australian. I'm very, yep. I like to have a good time. I think there's time to be serious and there's time to have fun. But we got to, I keep saying, you got to enjoy the process. You got to enjoy the process. If you're going to be too serious, I mean, we talk about basketball's a game of it's fun. So I try and put as much fun into it, but serious when we need to. I mean, obviously I talked about I'm very honest, but I'm very fair, like with how I coach my players. But also, I think you've seen, if you've been watching the social media, I get embarrassed a little bit because I am who I am. I'm very, I'm a former player as well too, so I can relate to these players and the moments that they're in. But we try and enjoy ourselves as well.
Introvert or extrovert?
My husband would say extrovert, but I'm a bit both. Like I'm a bit of a homebody when I'm by myself, but when I'm out in the public, I'm a bit of an extrovert, especially if I'm in a community where I know each other. If I'm in a new group, I'm actually quite shy. I know. That
was my next question, by the way. So.
Yeah. I am quite shy. People will go, "You're not shy." I'm like, I've had to learn not to be shy because of the job that I'm in. But if I go to a function and I don't know anyone, I'm not very good to go up just to start chit-chatting to people. I wish I was, but I'm not. Once I get there, I'm pretty good. But once I know people, I'm very outgoing.
Are you addicted to your phone?
No, not really. Not as much as my kids and many others.
Yep. And just finally, the experience around New York, amazing. Obviously, one of the most vibrant cities in the world. You had the mascot. You're meeting celebrities. What's one take out of the last week or so, Sandy, that you think, oh wow, you just again another pinch yourself moment?
Oh, winning Game 5 the way we did. We're Brianna Stewart making 2 free throws to send us into overtime and then gaining that momentum and just the energy in that building. That was, it's something I'll never forget. And if I had to add one, there's so many on that week, but would be the parade. It was down New York City. It was just amazing. The amount of people with New York Liberty jerseys on or just all our apparel. It just means, wow, we've made it. We've made it in the biggest city, and obviously it's great meeting all these famous people. It was pretty cool. I had a great party afterwards, party with a lot of them. But the moment of just winning is hard, and to do it, creating history in New York in front of our fans, that will go down as one of the best feelings ever.
I heard you had a little bit of a run-in with Ted Lasso.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's a regular. He's one of my mates. So yeah, he loves basketball.
What's he in your phone as? Is he Ted or is he Jason? Huh?
He's Jason.
Is he Jason to his inside? Is he? Yeah. Get a few tips. And when people come up and they say congratulations, Sandy, and they recognise you on the street or you're having a coffee and someone stops you, how does that make you feel now?
Yeah, no, pretty cool. But it means it's not about me. That's why I say it's not about me. It's about the team and what we brought to the city of New York and particularly Brooklyn. I live right attached to Barclays Center where we play, and just the energy around that. We're recognised a fair bit, but it just means women's WNBA is finally getting the recognition that they deserve, and that's not why we play. That's certainly not why I play, but I think it's fun because these players are becoming household names, and so they should be.
Sandy, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for being part of the Scoreboard podcast. I really appreciate, obviously, a busy schedule the last week of celebrating what is a massive accomplishment for, as we mentioned before, for New York, for basketball, for women's basketball in general. And looking forward to catching up, and good luck in your trip back to Australia, and hopefully our paths cross.
I appreciate it. Thank you.